Today's lesson is on common mistakes in unit analysis, and more importantly, how to go about fixing them. So hopefully you've had a chance to work on some unit analysis problems and seen the unit analysis video. Maybe you haven't had any problems yet, but just in case you have, or in case you have some in the future, I'm going to give you some tips on how to fix them. So let's review the 6 steps to solve problems, and then use those 6 steps to work on these 3 problems. So if you remember, step 1 was, what are you trying to find? What are the units in the answer going to be? So let's look at question 1, and it says the concentration of a sodium chloride solution is 0.25 moles over 1 liter. How many milliliters do you need to take to obtain 7.11 moles of sodium chloride in solution? So I look for keywords like how many, calculate the, and it has one of those phrases, how many milliliters. So I'm trying to find milliliters, so I'm going to put that way over here on the right-hand side, right? So we're done with step 1. Step 2, what are you given? Put that in fraction form. So let's see what we're given. We're going to look for the numbers in this problem, and I've got 2 pieces of information I've given. I have this and I have this. So I'm going to pick one of them to start. So I'm going to start with the 0.25 moles over 1 liter, and it's already in fraction form. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And I'm done with step 2. So step 1 is what am I trying to find, and step 2 is what am I given. Step 3 is there any other information I know or can look up to help me solve this problem? And I'm going to put the equivalencies in fraction form. So I have given you some equivalencies. They're at the top of this page, so you can use those. And some of them you probably already know. For instance, the top one, 1,000 milliliters equals 1 liter, is something you should already know. So here's my step 3. So what about step 4? Step 4 says we're going to set it up so that the unwanted units cancel and we end up with the desired units. So let's look at the problem. My desired units are milliliters. So anything but milliliters is undesired and I have to get rid of them. So I have to get rid of moles and liters and get to milliliters. So I'm going to set it up to cancel these and get this. So I go back to that top, and as I said, we're going to use this first one. I'm going to make it into a fraction, and then I'm going to decide where to put each of them. If I want to get rid of liters, I got to have liters on the top. So I'm going to have 1 liter over 1,000 milliliters. So there I've gotten rid of liters, and I've gotten milliliters, but I haven't gotten rid of moles yet. So I need to get rid of moles. Well, remember at the beginning I said we had 2 pieces of information, so I'm going to use that second piece of information because it talks about moles. So I'm going to put the moles on the bottom. They happen to be moles of sodium chloride, which I could put down. Okay, and it's all by itself, so I can put it by the number 1. And now I have gotten rid of the undesired units. I got rid of liters, they cancel. Okay, I got rid of moles, they cancel, and I'm left with milliliters. So I've done step 4. So I'm at step 5, which is solve. So I get out my calculator and I put in 0.25 divided by 1,000 divided by 7.1, and I get a number about 3.5 times 10 to the negative 5th. That would be in milliliters. So I've done steps 1 through 5. Things look good. Now I'm going to do step 6, which sometimes I forget, but especially when we're talking about mistakes, we need to do step 6 to find those mistakes. So we're going to check our answer. Do the units cancel? Liters cancel? Moles cancel. Yes, they cancel. So we've done that correctly. Did you get the right units? Milliliters, milliliters. Got the right units. Uh-oh. In the right place. Milliliters in the denominator, milliliters here. When it's all by itself, that means we could put it over the number 1. That means the milliliters are actually in the numerator. I did not get the units in the right place, so I made a mistake. So now what happens? I've got to fix it. So the problem is I have the right units, but they're in the wrong spot. I've got to fix this. Well, this is a pretty easy fix. The only thing wrong with this problem is the units are on the bottom. They should be on the top. So I just need to flip it. But if I flip this one, I'm going to have to flip this one, and I'm going to have to flip this one. So basically, I just need to flip the whole thing. So I really should have started with 1 liter over 0.25 moles. And then I could have multiplied by 1,000 milliliters over 1 liter. And then multiplied it by 7.11 moles, which were sodium chloride. Actually, sodium chloride for everything here, over 1. And I would have gotten my answer, which was 1 over 0.25 times 1,000 times 7.11, which would have given me 28,440 milliliters, about. But I have to do sig figs, so I go back and count. I've got 2 sig figs here. This is a definition, so I don't have to worry about that. 3 sig figs here. 2 and 3, I can only have 2 in my answer, so 1, 2. So I have 28, get rid of this, but I got to hold the place still, so it's 28,000 milliliters. All right, there I'm correct. So let's kind of review what kind of mistake is this. This is a kind of mistake when you end up with the final units, they're correct, except they're in the wrong place. Everything cancels. The only thing wrong is the units are in the wrong place. They should be on the top and they're on the bottom, or they should be on the bottom and they're on the top. So what can I do? What's the fix? All I have to do is go back and flip all my fractions. Also, I'm going to give you a hint to kind of avoid this in the first place. So how could I avoided doing this? Well, one trick, which doesn't always work, but often does, is I had 2 starting points. If I had chosen to start with the non-fraction, I probably wouldn't have ended up with that space. So instead of starting with this, I would have started with this, 7.11 moles, and put that over 1. I would have used this next to cancel out moles. I would have used this next to cancel out liters, and everything would have been correct the first time. All right, so those are some hints. But don't panic. Easy fixes. If you do it wrong, just flip everything. If you want to get a head start, you might want to avoid it and start with the non-fraction. All right, so mistake type number 1, and we've got it solved, so everything's good. Let's go on to problem number 2, and a different type of mistake. So we're going to do the same 6 steps. How many grams of H2, which is hydrogen, will react with 4.89 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of oxygen? So I read it, step 1. What am I trying to find? Grams. How many grams? So I'm going to put equals grams of hydrogen. Okay. Step 1. Step 2. What am I given? 4.89 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of oxygen. And I'm going to put it over 1. Step 1. What am I looking for? Step 2. What am I given? Step 3, do I know anything that will help me get from here to here? Well, yes, I do. I've got some information. Okay. Step 4, I want to set it up so the unwanted units cancel and I end up with the desired units. So I got to get rid of molecules of oxygen and get grams of hydrogen. So I'm going to go up here and do step 4, which is set it up so that those cancel. So here I've got something about molecules right here. So I'm going to use that here. So at the top it said that there was 1 mole in 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules. Now notice this said molecules of oxygen. So these need to be molecules of oxygen, but my definition didn't involve anything with oxygen. Well, this is kind of like if it said 12 equals 1 dozen. Okay. You could have 12 eggs equals 1 dozen eggs, or 12 donuts equals 1 dozen donuts. That's the same thing here. 1 mole of oxygen equals 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of oxygen, or 1 mole of hydrogen equals 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of hydrogen. So I can use different things. So I can call these molecules of oxygen, okay, and this would be moles of oxygen then, okay? So I've gotten rid of molecules of oxygen. Now I've got to get rid of moles of oxygen. So let's go back up. Oh, right under it, I've got something with moles of oxygen. All right, so I'm going to use that next. The moles of oxygen is going to go on the bottom, and 31.9988 grams of oxygen will go on the top. Moles of oxygen cancel. Now I'm at grams of oxygen, and I go back up to my top. I just use this, and then I look for grams of oxygen. Oops, I already used this. I don't have anything else with grams of oxygen. I'm kind of stuck. I don't know where to go next. I've reached a dead end because if I do this one again, I'll just be repeating this fraction upside down. That's not going to help. Uh-oh, I've come to a dead end. It's kind of like, if you ever played these games as a kid where you have a maze, and you can follow along. They're kind of fun to play, and you go along, and you're trying to get out, and oops, you came into a dead end. Okay? You don't give up. What you do is kind of go back to the beginning and try a different path. So you're going to keep on going, and hopefully you find the correct path out of the maze. Well, the same thing is kind of true for unit analysis. Okay, it's kind of like a path or a maze we're trying to find, or a puzzle till we get to here. So I don't give up. I just realize I've taken the wrong path. So somewhere along the way, I made a bad decision. So either here or here, I've chosen wrong. So let's try this again, and let's try a different path. So I'm going to still go to grams of hydrogen. I'm still starting with 4.89 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of oxygen. Okay, so let's see if I can find a different path. So I go back to the top, but there's only one thing with molecules in it. So that's probably correct for the path. So I'm going to do the same step. 1 mole of oxygen. Oops, got to get it in the view of the camera. 1 mole of oxygen to 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of oxygen. And I'm sorry if these numbers are getting pretty small, but that's a 23rd. All right. This cancels. Moles of oxygen. Well, if I go back up to the top, I was quick to pick the next equivalence because it was right underneath. But there's other places with oxygen. Here's something with oxygen. I could have used this one instead. There's 1 mole of oxygen to 2 moles of hydrogen, which would help me because I have hydrogen in my answer. So instead of going this path in my maze, I'm going to choose a different path. So I'm going to have 1 mole of oxygen this time, but to 2 moles of hydrogen. Right? I'm still not at my answer because I'm at moles of hydrogen when I want to be at grams of hydrogen. So I'm going to go back up. Do I have anything other than this with moles of hydrogen? Yes, I do. I have 1 mole of hydrogen equals 2.015, lots of numbers. So I have 1 mole of hydrogen, and let's get this in the screen so you can see it. 1 mole of hydrogen and 2.01594 grams of hydrogen. Okay. So now my moles of oxygen molecules of oxygen cancel, my moles of oxygen cancel, my moles of hydrogen cancel, and I'm at grams of hydrogen. And remember, if some of these terms are new to you, it doesn't matter. If these were quibbles and picus, it would still work. Okay? So now I'm at grams of hydrogen. So now I'm going to get out my calculator, and I'm going to take 4.89 times 10 to the 23rd divided by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd times 2 times 2.01594, and I get an answer of 3.2751 grams. But that's too many digits. We have to do our significant figures. I have 3 here. I have 3 here. This is an equivalence, doesn't count. And I've got lots here. So I only can have 3 in my answer, so this rounds to 3.27, and I can't just get rid of the 5.1. I got to use that to round up, so 3.28 grams is my answer. So let's refresh our memories. What kind of problem was this? This kind of problem is what happens if you reach a dead end, okay? I can't find any other fractions that will be helpful. I'm stuck. The fix is you start again and you choose a different path. So somewhere along the way there was a fork in the road and you picked the wrong direction. So what's the hint to avoid this? If I had thought ahead, I might have looked at the next step. What if I use grams of oxygen? What am I going to do after that? So if you take some time and map out where you're going next, that can help you avoid this type of problem. But even if you get here, remember you can always find a different path. All right, so that's mistake number 2. And let's try one more, mistake number 3. Okay, so same steps. How many feet are equal to 6.4 AU? AU actually stands for astronomical unit, and it is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So I'm going to look and say how many feet. So that's my first step, equals feet. My second step is what am I given? 6.4 AU, and I'm going to put it over the number 1. Okay. Now I got to get rid of AU, and I got to get to feet. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look up some information, which is at the top, and use that to solve this problem. So step 4 is set it up so that this cancels, and I get to feet. All right. So I find that there's something with AU in it. So I go 1 AU, and let's get this on the screen so you can see it. 9.4 times 10 to the 7th miles. Okay. So I got rid of AU. Now I have to get rid of miles. Well, here on the top it says there is 1 mile to 5,280 feet. Okay. So I got rid of AU, I got rid of miles, and I'm at feet. Take out my calculator, and I get about, wow, 113,939 feet. Okay, so that's about 1.1 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 10 to the 5th feet. Okay. So now I've got my answer, and I go to step 6, which is check your answer. Do your units cancel? AUs cancel, miles, oh, miles don't cancel. Okay, so I've done something wrong. Well, it was good up to here, and then I was in such a hurry to finish the video quickly that I didn't put this in the right place. So my units do not cancel. So what am I going to do? Start over, feet over here, 6.4 AU over here. Multiply that by the same thing we did before, 10 to the 7th miles in 1 AU. But I'm going to slow down just for a second and go, here's my equivalency, but I put it in the wrong spot. So the miles should have gone on the bottom, 5,280. Feet go on top. Now my units cancel, and I get out my calculator, and I get 3.1764 times 10 to the 12th feet. Okay, but I've got to round that. 2 sig figs here, 2 sig figs here. This might be a definition. We only have 2 in our answer, so 3.2 times 10 to the 12th feet. So now if I check my answer, my units do cancel. Okay, they are in the right place. Both are in the top. Does it make sense? Well, I'm really 6.4. That's a lot of a distance. If 1 AU is the distance between the Earth and the Sun, so it does make sense that I have a very, very large answer. Okay, so what's the summary on the last step? The mistake is the units don't really cancel. I thought they canceled, but they don't. So what's the fix? You flip just the units that don't cancel, just the wrong fractions. And what is the hint? You just need to go a little slower. Okay? And then you won't make that mistake. So hopefully you learn some lessons and you won't make these mistakes, but if you do, you know how to fix them. Thanks for watching.